It's been a year of just constant piling on with this government juggernaut, run by abusive, malicious, power mad, crypto partisan, corrupt prosecutors. Persecutors really is what they are. They're not prosecutors; they're persecutors, running Roger through this completely contrived, overblown, bogus, hair splitting, but yet highly consequential on paper, if because of the penalties involved, case against him. And this is yesterday was the first year, and Roger agreed with me. I texted him late last night and said, I think this is the first day that you've actually had a break, that we've actually been able to see some level of ray of hope for justice in this matter.
We are now into hour 2 of the InfoWars War Room, brought to you by InfoWarsStore.com. Lawyer and legal expert Tyler Nixon is joining me now. Let's get back into the weeds of the Roger Stone story. Tyler, I'm not sure if you heard my entire diatribe there in the intro segment to this, but I know you know how I feel about what's going on with Roger Stone and the larger issue. So either care to respond to that if you want to, or let me just ask you this as well. With the latest developments in the Roger Stone case, really, it's almost as if in the entirety of the case, this is like the first break. At least I measured as kind of a break for Roger, at least maybe some semblance of justice or somebody who wants to see some justice here. But what do you make of the latest developments in the Stone case? And do you agree with my analysis from the last segment?
I totally agree, and you're always spot on. You intuitively get it. You have a sense for justice. You have a sense for rebelliousness or revolt against illegitimate power and coercion exercised by illegitimate, opportunistic parasites like we have running the not running the government necessarily, but certainly in the Democrat side, running parts of our government. Hopefully that's changing soon. I'll tell you what, yesterday, after over a year of this ordeal, which really was more than a year because they began essentially dismantling or dissecting Roger's life, calling in everybody he works with, rummaging through his garbage, you name it, for the better part of probably a year leading up to when he was indicted, and then he was indicted.
And in fact, it was probably almost a year ago today, at least within the realm, that he had the guns pointed at him, raid on his house.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a year. It was January 25th, a date which will live in infamy in my personal life or my sense of anything. And it's been a year of just constant piling on with this government juggernaut, run by abusive, malicious, power mad, crypto partisan, corrupt prosecutors. Persecutors really is what they are. They're not prosecutors; they're persecutors, running Roger through this completely contrived, overblown, bogus, hair splitting, but yet highly consequential on paper, if because of the penalties involved, case against him. And this is yesterday was the first year, and Roger agreed with me. I texted him late last night and said, I think this is the first day that you've actually had a break, that we've actually been able to see some level of ray of hope for justice in this matter. And the people who have abused and tortured in many ways Roger Stone, bankrupted him, have framed him, have railroaded him, are now being scattered. They're scattering like bugs now that President Trump and Attorney General Barr have focused on this case and the outrageous sentencing memorandum they submitted, which was frankly chock full of outright falsehoods, misstatements, manipulations, very just consistent with how they ran the entire case. I could probably run through. I couldn't believe I was 4 pages in, and I was like, "This is insane." I'm literally reading statements of fact, or statements made as fact, as though they were proven at trial, which were outright false, and clearly damaging to Roger. It was literally like I felt like I had just read a DNC talking points memo. That's who it could have been drafted by, and that's frankly who these crooked, despicable prosecutors were serving in the end. I mean, these were Hillary Obama loyalists embedded in the Department of Justice who were tasked and assigned to essentially string up Roger Stone, to lynch him. I call it the witch hunt lynch mob is what these guys were. There were 4 of them. They were, they were gleeful. They were over the top, manipulative, disingenuous, deceitful in bringing this malicious prosecution against Roger and destroying his life. And now he faces prison, and they have the gall to present a bogus fantasy derived sentencing memorandum asking for 7 to 9 years of a 67-year-old man's life behind bars, knowing that that's just outlandish, even if there were victims involved, or it was a property or harmed property or person offense, he would probably never have gotten anything close to that. It's just sandbagging, and it reflects the psychopathic evil that these people are bringing to their positions of trust and power. And no one's safe, frankly, if they can get away with this. And it was just honestly so enthralling, but yet almost sort of I don't know, it's like the end of a 25-mile ruck march where you're glad to be slumped down and finally at rest for a moment, and it feels great, but at the same time you're exhausted of it. It's like even in a situation like that, you've actually made progress, you've traveled. In this, it's just been a complete and total loss, fighting and beating back these people, not knowing what's coming next, not know what maneuvers they're going to pull, going before a jury in D.C., a jurisdiction which consists of a 6% Republican voter registration, half of which are probably never Trumpers, before an Obama-appointed judge who was clearly hostile to Roger from the outset, who was absolutely, in my view, way outside of her.
Well, let's actually get to that, because I guess what happens next is it kind of just lands in the judge's lap. I mean, they're not going to reassign prosecution and have them examine this case or try this case or what have you. So there might be. Well, and I guess comment on that, because to me it looks like I guess it's just going to land in Judge Jackson in her lap. To which I understand the positive, which is like, hey, the president is seeing this, the Justice Department is seeing this, they know it's wrong what's being done to Roger, but at the same time, until there's action, you're still kind of sitting here now at the whim of the judge. But you're saying that perhaps there is a new prosecution that steps in, and then what happens?
No, I'm not saying there's a new prosecution that steps in. I mean, these guys, well, and let's get something straight here. If you don't think that whole stunt yesterday, the entire sentencing memorandum, which was an over-the-top, like I said, practically a DNC talking points, might as well have been out of one of the bogus lawsuits they filed against Roger and President Trump, a year before that, or 2 years now. It read like absolutely like just a litany of these presumptuous conclusion leaps that they made, where a 24-word exchange with some profile on Twitter called Gooseford 2.0 means Roger Stone is consciously coordinating or working with Russian intelligence. I mean, it's literally insane, and it's beyond the realm of legitimate, credible, ethical attorneys to have done what they did. It requires not only malice, but in my view, a criminal intent to defile the justice system as they have and come after Roger. I mean, these are criminals. These are not unethical lawyers. They're criminals. So that being said, they're off the case, which is and I think I don't know why this was contrived. Okay, don't kid yourself. These guys didn't just decide on the moment, on a moment's notice, that they were going to leave their positions. Now, I don't know. I'm not clear yet because of the reporting whether some of them resigned from the actual Justice Department or withdrew from the case. I don't know whether what the distinction is there. Now, withdrawing from the case is obviously far less of a statement to make. An attorney can withdraw from a case, and it's not like you've thrown your career over the side or you've left your employer. So I think it's been a little bit overblown in the media. I don't know. I haven't clarified that yet. But that being said, they knew that this was way over the top, that it would not be received by any credible or reasonable or rational observer, attorney within the Justice Department as being within the guidelines and within the normal procedures. So, they're claiming here that they want, this is the ruse that they've created, similar to how they've created the entire case against Roger, where they put up this false, ridiculous document in the form of a sentencing guidelines that's way over the top, and they know it. They know it's over the top, and immediately draw the rebuke righteously of the career Justice Department folks. It wasn't Barr himself. I mean, I think he stepped in because he saw that this is so insane.
All right,
I mean,
well, we're about to go to a break, and I want you to think about this during the break when we come back to talk about it, because the whole real spark here is them claiming Trump colluded with Russia and somehow Roger Stone was involved in that. Well, that whole narrative's been blown out the door. So the whole case is a fraud. But what is the legal precedent with that? Welcome back into the InfoWars War Room, brought to you by InfoWarsStore.com. Tyler Nixon is our legal expert guest right now. I want to kind of rephrase my question, Tyler, or I want to give an elementary analogy to the question that I asked you, and then get your response to this. But essentially, to me, what happened is, and again, this is elementary, it's like if I accused my crew of stealing my bicycle, and I'm saying the crew stole my bicycle, I'm really upset at the crew, I know they stole it, they're crooks, they stole my bicycle, and they launch a federal investigation, and there was a guest in studio that day who was getting along with the crew, and the guest that day talked to one of the crew members, and I said, he talked to the crew member that day, and he didn't remember it, and he was like, I don't think I talked to the crew member that day. I don't remember meeting that crew member. I don't know. And then they go and they review some surveillance footage, and it turns out, oh my gosh, he said hello and shook that crew member's hand. We caught you lying. Well, then the next day it turns out, oh, I found my bike. It was right under my desk. Here's my red bike. I just got it. No one stole the bike. Well, this guy still lied to us, so we're going to give him the whole weight of the legal system and arrest him. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's not justice at all. That's the analogy I would give to this. But what is the legal precedent? Because I'm sure there's been some sort of precedence around cases that end up flopping, but people either go to jail for lying to the FBI or it gets washed off the record. Is there a legal precedent for that? And how is this going to apply in this case?
Yeah, unfortunately, what you have is you have prosecutorial discretion. We rely on these people to bring valid cases, to exercise good judgment, and to exercise a sense of justice in bringing these cases where, look, okay, there are extenuating circumstances where, look, the whole thing was a hoax, and there wasn't, what he was being questioned about, for example, was legal conduct, and it didn't divert the investigation. And let's not forget. I noticed you mentioned that you questioned whether it was Roger lied to the FBI or not. Well, it wasn't. He was never accused. He never spoke to the FBI. It was the House Intelligence Committee and Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell and Quigley and these shysters. These,
I'm sorry. It's just I'm so glad that you corrected the record on that, because it just makes me even more angry.
Oh yeah, no, it's legitimacy now, and this is where legitimate prosecutors, real, professional, justice-minded, impartial to an extent prosecutors. Prosecutors aren't supposed to be just absolutely ruthless parties. They have a higher standard. They have a greater responsibility because they know they've got the entire power of the government behind them. And there are presumptions concerning prosecutors that that they present evidence that is real, that they're not just manufacturing things and stringing people up. And and unfortunately, when you have a cabal of corrupt prosecutors, as we have, and you have a corrupted DOJ left over from a corrupt president who was abusing everything. I mean, the intelligence community, the FISA, the FBI, and all of it. You have the ability to have these gotcha crimes, these are offenses, I should say, these hair-splitting. We don't care that this investigation was a fraud. We don't care that Adam Schiff and his crew are a bunch of psychopathic liars. We don't care about any of that because you made this false statement and we can show it. End of story. You can't introduce evidence to anything else. You can't show that it wasn't material, that there was nothing, the investigation itself was ill-founded. I mean, we had intended to try to put the context on it, what I call this, I guess you could say, and what this is not a legal term, it's my own invention, I guess you could say, is that they have prosecuted, and they do this with President Trump and everyone else. They decontextualize these events. In other words, they take them out of context and they hold up a certain behavior and say, look, you did this. Well, hold on a second. There's, other circumstances. That's why we have a trial. That's why we have these proceedings, so that a trier of fact, an impartial person can look at it and say, okay, well, maybe this statement was not true or it was erroneous or whatever, but it didn't matter. It was not material. It was it was questions asked that were irrelevant, and clearly the intent of the people who elicited these was not good faith. I mean, they were partisans. This whole presumption, for example, that Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell and Joaquin Castro and Himes and Quigley and Jackie Spear on the Intelligence Committee, that they are somehow converted into disinterested, ethical, good faith investigators because what? They assume the mantle and the cloak of the House Intelligence Committee? Give me a break.
Well, if anything, I would say, if anything, it's been proven the exact opposite.
That's right. They abused their powers.
And there's no way for us to obviously be inside of President Trump's head or Attorney General Barr's head. But here's my common logic response to this. Because obviously they know Roger was railroaded. Obviously they're aware of this extent. Mostly, I would say, because it happened to President Trump. I mean, he's kind of the antithesis of the whole
Roger
thing.
Roger predicted that too.
Right, exactly. The night of the election. The night of the election. Sadly enough. But I guess my question is, and I know that we can't even necessarily answer this, but it's like if you're the president's legal team, or you're the president, it's obvious that this whole thing was political, but to me, there has to be enough, wherewithal here, enough intellect here to say, obviously there's some serious alternative motives going on here. This isn't about justice. This isn't about the league. This isn't about protecting the election from Russia. There's obviously something else going on behind the scenes. Where is the interest in getting that out there? Where is the interest in that investigation? I think this is what has us all so frustrated, watching them getting ready to boil Roger Stone like a lobster in a boiling pot of water. And we're just sitting here saying, wait a second, these are the guys that are committing the crimes. Why are they boiling us?
Yeah. And let me tell you something. That has been, you want to talk about boiling, it is boiled over frustration for Roger, for myself, working with him for the last year, watching them systematically deny him, in my view, a fair and due process of law.
They remove his free speech. I mean, they literally cancel his free speech.
Unbelievable. I mean, the violations of his civil rights are unprecedented in any case I've ever seen in American history, and certainly in my own legal career. I've never heard of such draconian, tyrannical actions by, and frankly, sneaky. And this is the problem with getting people like this into positions where there is no alternative. In other words, the courts are our last redoubt against a tyrannical government. And when you have a judge who's basically just a rubber stamp, or moreover, I mean, not even a rubber stamp. There were instances where they didn't even have to make their arguments. She made them for the government without them even having to ask. That's how, in the tank of this sort of anti-Stone.
And it's the whole of course, oh yeah, just common knowledge, oh yeah, that's a given. Nobody.
Oh yeah, he puts a symbol from a logo is near this woman's head in a picture, with text next to it that says nothing threatening whatsoever, but just states facts.
And that was the other thing too,
and that's a death threat. That's now become a death threat.
And that was the other thing too that they said. I mean, once the DOJ got their spectacles on this, they said, "No, wait a second. The guy that you said they had threatening speech to, the guy even said he wasn't threatened, but yet you're still using that against him. Now, hold on, this is clearly not fair. The whole thing is not fair." That was just another example of how it's not fair. And here's what I'm going to do on the other side, Tyler, and this, I want to get your take on this as well, because this is why this case is so important, folks. There's a reason why this case is so important, and it should strike fear into the heart and soul of every American. What they did to Roger Stone, they will do to anybody. It could be you. Tyler Nixon is still with me here for another segment. And we've gone through the nuts and bolts of what's been going on to Roger in this case and applying it to the larger issues. But I really want to expand on why this is so scary. And, Tyler, I think for a lot of people that haven't necessarily been through the legal system, it's a lot harder to grasp how bad this is when it's not your gonads in the ringer and you're dealing with a judge and a prosecutor. even for small cases. It can be stressful.
Absolutely.
And it can feel
it's
totally hopeless.
The pendency of it. Anybody, even if people who've had, like, say, a speeding ticket and they're worried about it, it's just that the fact that it's hanging out there, that you don't know what's going to happen, that you don't know how hard they're going to come at you. You don't know whether you're going to be found guilty and been penalized, or what the result. But
imagine this.
And
imagine
they hold all the cards.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because I think it gives us a better way to kind of translate this. Imagine, though, you do get that speeding ticket, but you weren't speeding. You have a dash cam that monitors your miles per hour, and for whatever reason, let's say, you're dating the cop's ex-girlfriend or ex-wife or something, and that's the vendetta here, but you can't bring that up in court. Yeah, you can't bring that up in court. You can't talk about it. The judge has said, no, you can't talk about that. You're not allowed to present the evidence of the facts that, no, you weren't speeding. You have the evidence. You can't present that to the public. You're gagged from doing that, or you're suffering more jail time. So this is why it's so scary to me. If they can, look, there's corruption everywhere. I mean, you can sit here and argue whether this person's corrupt, that person's corrupt. Nobody's going to sit here and act like there is no corruption. There's obviously corruption. This is why we have protections in limited government and independence here in America, to protect citizens from corrupt government. But if it reaches a point, Tyler, where judges and a prosecutorial team can say, you can't talk about this court case, well, then what holds them back from doing anything at all? What holds them back from presenting fake evidence? What holds them back from running a complete, Banana Republic show trial and just railroading people? Well, nothing does. And that's what happened with Roger.
That's why it's so dangerous, because the justice system is we expect it to be a place of ethics and of law and of justice, and not to be corrupted, not to be treated like a political tool by malicious partisans, out for vendettas and out for ulterior motives. And this is exactly what's happened. And it's so dangerous because it's almost imperceptible because of the power. I don't think people realize how much prosecutorial discretion is typically exercised in any criminal case or in most criminal matters. We all know of there was a book written called 3 Felonies a Day, and it's actually about Andrew Weissman. It's about, you could probably violate anywhere from 8 to 10 to 20 federal laws in any given day just by going about your normal existence, right? But obviously they don't prosecute us for those. The problem is we have literally a federal code and state codes and local codes laden with laws that you almost can't exist without violating the law at some point. So literally our freedom, our ability to have justice and to have a civil society comes down to the integrity of the people who prosecute or are responsible for law enforcement not going overboard and exercising some level of judgment and humanity and measure, to prevent harm, to punish evil deeds, not to just use it as a malicious weapon of whipping people into either obedience or submission or punishing your enemies. And that's exactly what's going on here. And you mentioned the frustration, and what I want to say is this. It was very lonely in a sense, because nobody would speak about the case other than, when they came out and said Roger Stone violated the gag order, as if his First Amendment rights are just washed away because he's been accused in this ridiculous, over the top, malicious prosecution. And it was very frustrating because you felt like, oh my God, like this, they could really go through with this. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Because I know that, first of all, the whole case is contrived, but secondly, what the offenses entailed in terms of punishments, and then the feds do not F around. Let's just say, I mean, they come after you, man. You're going away. I mean, and they win 98% of the cases, so you're almost assured to be not only convicted but imprisoned if you're found guilty of some of these offenses, if they choose to go after it. And yesterday, I think what it is nobody wanted to sort of speak out and wanted to presume the good faith and the integrity of the system that was prosecuting Stone. But I think we all knew that it was tainted. We all knew, and we could see just from the gag order alone, forget the substance of the case, that this was absolutely an attempt to railroad and destroy this man and muzzle his civil rights and treat him as less than human, as less than a citizen. And I think everybody has seen this, and I think what I saw yesterday was almost like an explosion finally of the, you cannot tell me that President Trump did not understand what was going on. I think he's a keen guy, and I think he's someone who does care about his friends, and especially someone who he's seeing. I don't think Trump's like a touchy-feely guy who's like, oh, he loves everybody around him. But I think he is someone who abhors injustice and does not want to see people get screwed or railroaded, or especially under his watch, so to speak. I think he's the type of guy. He may not be slapping you on the back and telling jokes and making you feel good, but if someone tries to harm you and you're under his sort of umbrella, he will come in like gangbusters and make sure that the bad guys are taken care of and that you're protected. And I like to think that, and I think that's what's going on here, because I was shocked at how vigorously he came out and frankly heartened and like I said, really absolutely just enthralled, because I just felt like, thank God, Roger has been through so much. This is so unjust. It is so malicious and wicked tempered, and these people are disgusting, and they should not be in government. And yet they're going to walk away without a scratch, while all the criminals in their cabal run free. And this man, who's a private citizen, who simply was attempting as a journalist really to expose the dirt and the corruption,
well, and that would be the
of
ultimate
their political
crime.
Masters, and for this he's being lynched.
And that is the ultimate crime, exactly, right there, is that the real criminals are the ones running this scam against Trump, against Roger, against all kinds of people, against Alex Jones, against InfoWars, and they need to be stopped. Yeah. And I think what it comes down to, in so many words, Tyler, and you kind of hinted to this earlier, but what the Democrats have done in practice is they have weaponized the judicial system. They have weaponized it. They've turned it into a political weapon. They've put their activist legal snipers on benches and in black robes to do their bidding. And you just get the feeling that they're kind of sitting back behind closed doors just laughing their asses off at conservatives and Trump supporters, because they're sitting here like, we got this big gun. We got this big bazooka, the judicial system, and we're just firing at will, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah. Well, it's like the devil can do anything he wants. He can be the most grotesque, abusive, disgusting, vile piece of crap and attack people and just slaughter and maim and mutilate. But if you're on the side of good and you're fighting that, you can't do that. You can't murder in the name of justice. You can't string people up in the name of a good civil society. But the thing is, they're willing to do that. If nothing else, it has exposed how far they're willing to go. They're willing to literally defile and abuse and corrupt the last redoubt, the last bit of the last measure that we have within our constitutional framework and our republic to appeal to a higher power, so to speak, or a neutral party to in the face of tyrannical abuses by politicians like Schumer and Pelosi and them. Now they're all on the same sheet of music. It's like they've co-opted the media, the entire media, really the corporate media, and now they've been trying to co-opt the justice system. And if they get away with it, forget it. I mean, it will never go back. They will set the precedent that, it's just another tool in the weapon of the bag of weapons, or the bag of tricks of the autocratic, parasitic lifer politicians like the ones who are now, and they have the unmitigated gall to run around wrapped in sanctimony and pretending as though that they are protecting. I mean, to hear these people pretend to be constitutionalists, it's like, I mean, it's literally nauseating.
Tyler, do you think we got 15 seconds? Do you think Roger gets his sentencing on February 20th, or are they going to delay?
No, he will proceed with sentencing.
Okay,
and they should, because I mean, he is owed. I
agree. All right, Tyler Nixon, thank you so much. If anything else breaks, we'll get Tyler back on.
Don't be a victim. If you're worried about the coronavirus, exercise, but not too hard, because that can lower your immune system. Drink extra purified, clean water so that no toxins weigh you down, but you have plenty of hydration. Prayer and meditation has been proven to make you healthier. Get plenty of vitamin C, get plenty of vitamin D3, which is fish oil. Take your colloidal silver, all of it. That's what allows you to be healthier, and get plenty of sleep. We have sold out of the 16-ounce immune gargle that has the nano silver that's patented and documented and even admitted in documents we've shown to go after this whole corona SARS family of viruses. We're almost sold out of the 1-ounce spray bottles. That'll be sold out in a couple days. And we're in about a week and a half or so of the Super Silver 3-ounce bottles. Great to have, period. Really good for your gums. Really great for your teeth. We also have the Super Silver in our whitening toothpaste. Again, we're the only folks allowed to private label or make our own products with this top nanotech company based here in the U.S. that's in all these Homeland Security documents and everything, because we get the best stuff, and there's a lot of patriots. There's not just bad guys coming after us. There's the flip side of all the good guys and good gals, and it's very exciting.